Tom and I are thrilled to be here. We'd like to give a shout out to Fabian and Nick for their help in putting together this event, and an even bigger thank you to Grant Crowley and the Yard's amazing support for the sailing community, and especially us sailboat racers. Today's presentation is aimed primarily at boat owners, although persons looking to crew will find it useful. It's a high-level approach to what is necessary to get an invitation to race to Mackinac. We urge everyone, to both crew and owners alike, to spend time on the CYC RTM website and learn more about the race on their own. We direct you to read the notice of race and study the Chicago MAC safety requirements, as well as checking out the frequently asked questions. Before we begin, though, I'd like to briefly talk to any individuals that might be on this webinar, just to let you know, the importance of becoming a valued crew member. And two things stand out. One is to make sure you have the right gear, and the second is that you have safety at sea training and experience in order to become a useful crew member. The way you gain offshore and overnight sailing experience is to compete in as many port-to-ports as you possibly can. Of course, most of us began our career sitting on the rail, but the key there to getting off the rail is to look around, pay attention to what's happening on the boat, and ask questions. Try to do it quietly and when things aren't really, when there's a lull in the action. But it's okay if you don't have your own life jacket, but many racers do carry their own equipment. Make sure you've communicated to the owner that you don't have one so that he can provide one. And if you do get a PFD, I just want to make sure to remind you to try it on, make sure it's comfortable, and make sure you fit the crotch straps. And finally, inspect that PFD every time you pick it up to put it on. You never know what might have happened when you set it aside. We also want to make sure you know how to operate the firing mechanism on that PFD with your eyes closed. And you should learn about other safety equipment and radio protocols. So I know that another seminar is being presented today by Rail Meets, which matches crews and skippers. So make sure you check them out. There's also a website. So as mentioned, Tom and I have sailed this race for a few times. It never, though, gets old. So we're looking forward to getting your questions, and we can certainly get started. Obviously, the red line shows the straight line distance from Chicago all the way to the Mackinac Island. The fleet is divided into 4 divisions: the racing monohulls, which have both the Mac Cup and the Mac Trophy, the cruising division, the multi-hull division, and the double-handed division. Tom and I used to sail together, but now that he's competing in a different division, I'm not able to beat him anymore or be on his winning boat. So. Anyway, the starts is off of Chicago. It's in group, boats start at around 15 boats per section that are similar size and design. You might be in an upwind beat. You might be lucky and get a downwind start. But in any event, make sure you get a safe start. There's no need to push the line in a 333-mile race. The Yacht Club offers yellow brick tracking. And what that does is it allows the spectators to see where the boats are on the lake. And it also obviously lets the competitors can gain this access as well, but only if they have an internet signal or some sort of cell phone. The first, if you remember back at the beginning, there's a long stretch across Lake Michigan northward, and it runs about 170 nautical miles or so until you get to what is called Point Betsy. And it's not a mark of the course, but it certainly, if you get a beam, once you get a beam of this Michigan lighthouse, it tells you that you've got your first leg accomplished, and you now then need to go and turn your attention to the middle portion of the course, where the boats sail further north past Sleeping Bear Point, and then they thread their way through the Manitou Passage and head out for Gray's Reef. That's why the time you get to North Manitou Light, you've basically got about 2/3 of the race under your belt, and then you've got another 50 or 60 miles to get to Gray's Reef, which you see here in this lower left-hand corner. And the red arrow up here marks the top of of where Gray's Reef is located here in the top of Lake Michigan. So once you get to Gray's Reef, you've got to go through the reef. There's a channel, and then you make the turn and head for the Mackinac Bridge. Boats are required to pass under one of the 3 center spans of the bridge, and you have to realize that the bridge presents its own set of difficulties because of both wind deviations and also potential shadows. It has been known for the entire fleet to arrive at the bridge and the wind have shut off. So everybody parks here for, hours and maybe even a day, or nearly a day, until you can get through that wall. And at that point, once you pass the bridge, you've got about less than 5 miles to the island. Pictured here is White Hawk that last year won first to the island. Or first to the island, first to the island finish. So from 2 years ago, 2019. The finish is between the Mackinac Island and Rand Island Light, which here is at the south end of the finish line. And this just shows you a picture of the fleet safely docked at Mackinac Island. So Tom, I'll turn it over to you now to talk a little bit more about these qualifications and so forth.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Clark? Okay. I'm going to spend most of the time on qualifications. Note that the emphasis is on the boat owner, although a person looking to crew can poke around the website and learn a lot about the race. And actually, crew members, it's important that they read the notice of race and the safety regs so that they're familiar with them also. First of all, the race is invitation only, which means that you have to request an invitation, and this is all done on the website. There's a selections committee consisting of 4 experienced racers that have been on the MAC committee for a while. And the primary question that we seek to answer when we evaluate a request for invitation is, can this boat and this crew safely compete and complete the race? We're interested in people doing the race that can do it safely, that you have enough experienced people on board that if your most experienced person or your second most experienced person are disabled, seasickness, or whatever, you have backup in terms of other people that have distance racing or passage making experience. The invited competitor does not necessarily have to be highly qualified. He or she can be just a boat owner that has never done any distance racing or passage making, but you have to have other experienced people on board. Several years ago, we actually invited a blind person to enter the boat as the invited competitor, but he had an extremely qualified person in charge who was a professional boat captain, and he had watch captains that had many long distance races under their belts and experienced crew. So just because you don't personally have the experience, if you surround yourself with good crew, chances are you can get an invitation to the race. Next slide. relevant skills. One of the things that you're going to find on the website, and we'll show you that here momentarily, is a safety and skills checklist. It's part of the CMSRs. CMSR stands for Chicago Mac Safety Requirements, and there are 4 or 5 tabs to that, all useful information. The first one, obviously, is the very detailed information about what's required for the boat safety equipment. But then there's also these things like the safety skills checklist. Safety at sea training is required for a person in charge and 50% of the crew. You don't have to have the safety at sea training before you submit a request for invitation. But you have to meet the requirements in terms of the number of crew that pass the safety at sea exams or courses before the start of the race. What we're looking for, as I mentioned, is significant offshore nighttime racing and the sailing experience. This is really the most crucial thing outside of the boat being a qualified boat. But when you put your crew together, you want to make sure that they all answer the experience detail it doesn't have to be a 5-chapter book of their experience, but we want them to list the relevant experience, which is distance races that they participated in that are equal to or greater than a MAC race, or any shorter ones, such as the Queen's Cup, the tri-state race, any of those in the southern part of the lake here. All of that is important. But what we do look for is at least 2, if not 3, depending on the boat and complexity, people that have had, crew members that have had MAC experience or greater. We will consider qualifications as qualified people that have done significant overnight passage making, and we ask that be listed also. What doesn't count is 100 nights on an aircraft carrier. Doesn't count. It's really, what are your duties on a boat of similar size, of similar complexity? And we're looking in particular for people with navigator experience, watch captain experience. If you've got 3 very experienced people that have done a lot of MAC races, but they're all bow men or bow women, yeah, not quite so much. This is from the perspective of a boat owner. We're aft of the traveler. People in front of the traveler, while they're important, you need to be able to get those sails down. It's really the combination of all, but we're really looking at the qualifications of people after the traveler. We do look at the seaworthiness of your boat, and in general, there is on the website a history. You can, when you go to the MAC website, if you click on competitors, and then there is, in the right-hand side, once you've clicked on competitors, there's a boat and crew history search. With that history search, you can search for boats that that are similar to yours, or you can enter in like J105. And if you search for J105, it'll bring up a list of 35 J105 combination of skippers and boat owners that have entered the race. So you can search and see if a similar boat a boat similar to yours has done the race in the past. And if that's the case, chances are your boat will qualify. Absent that, you can always send an email to regatta manager at Chicago Yacht Club at cycracetomackinac.org. The regatta manager is always your central point for information. It has to be a stable boat. We look at comfort and speed. And also, we keep referring back to the CMSRs. As you think about joining the race, go to the website and pull up the Chicago Mac Safety Regulations on the official notice board. In terms of crew members, for monohulls, there's a minimum of 5 crew members. When we look at how many crew you have relative to the size and complexity of your boat, and we've got a history of of a lot of boats, boat makes, and how many crew are on them. So if you've got a FAR 40 and you tell us that you want to do the Mac race with a crew of 5, and we can see that 90% of the time FAR 40 sail with 10 or 12 people or whatever it is, you're not going to get approved with a crew of 5. So you have to have crew applicable to your boat so that you can safely compete and complete the race. Minimum length, 27 feet. And there is a stability index, stability requirement, the stability number of 103. But basically, look at the boats that have done it. If there's a boat similar to yours, of the same make and model as yours, you'll probably be fine unless you've done something like added an extra tall rig or something like that. Cruising division, only monohulls are permitted. The nice thing about the cruising division is you can have power winches and power autopilots. You can use the autopilot start to finish. And I will tell you that in the cruising division, that is efficient use of an autopilot is the key to success. I do a lot of cruising, so I'm very familiar with my autopilot. I'm experienced with it. I can tell you that the autopilot can drive only 90% as well as my best crew member. But the difference is my best crew member can be at his or her peak only 10% of the time, whereas the autopilot is driving 90% well at 100% of the time. You get in the cruising division, you get a maximum of 2 head sails that you can carry. They must be roller furling and only one at a time. No whisker poles allowed. You can have a stay sail. And then the other key attribute and thing that attracts a lot of people is no spinnaker poles need apply. You carry only a maximum of 2 asymmetrical spinnakers. So it makes life a lot easier when you have to do a jibe at 2 o'clock in the morning. Key documents, as it says here, Google CYCRTM, Chicago Race Club Mac, Race to Mackinac, CYCRTM. And from there, if you click on the competitors link, you'll find all of the information that you need. There'll be the safety regs, crew overboard recovery drill certificate, and there's the notice of race. It's also where you'll find protest information later on in the race, but hopefully you'll never have to visit that. And here is what the website looks like. This is the official notice board. So there'll be race documents. You can see the notice of race, the mono for the monohulls. There's a separate one for monohulls, separate one for multi-hulls, and it's available. There available as PDFs, and also the official version is an Excel spreadsheet. Clark, I'll turn it over to you to talk.
Tom has mentioned a couple of times CMSRs. That is, as he said, Chicago Mac safety requirements. If you go to the official notice board, you can see there are two entries. One is for monohulls that's official. That is an Excel spreadsheet format, and then we PDF that and post it because some individuals did not have Excel capabilities in the past. But the official one, if you have Excel, you should use that to run an inventory of what you might already have on the boat and are able to utilize, and what you may need to acquire or otherwise maybe even rent or borrow. So the monohulls have 73 specific requirements. Obviously, some are longer and more involved than others. The requirements are divided into 4 sections, and then there's those sections follow the U.S. Sailing SCR's word for word. A 5th section is added by the CYC MAC committee to add some additional ones that are specific to this race. It's important to remember that all boats are subject to inspection. New boats are afforded the benefit of a pre-race safety inspection to make sure that they have the necessary equipment in order to comply with the CMSRs. It's also something to emphasize that you need to practice using this equipment. Make sure that everybody on the boat knows how the equipment is used, and also, make sure your equipment is inspected frequently and that it's up to date. Equipping a boat doesn't have to cost a fortune, but it does have to work. These CMSRs are the minimum standards required by the organizing or the racing authority. You should strive to exceed them. And we urge you to start now, because a lot of the CMSR equipment and requirements will make you a safer boater and a safer cruiser even before you've entered the race. And then, Tom, I think we've gone through some of this, but is there somewhere after they've had a chance to take a look at the website? I guess there's a few other steps that you can talk about.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, it all begins with the request for invitation. But before you begin the request for invitation, you need to assemble what's known as a preliminary crew list. You don't have to have all the crew, but you need to have a minimum of 5 crew members that have completed their profiles and signed their waivers, and that's what we'll be basing our decision to invite on is the crew members that have actually accepted the invitation. It's important to know that starting this year, crew members own their own profiles. In the past, every time a skipper would have somebody join the crew, they would create a new profile for the crew member. So we had people with 7 profiles. Now there's going to be only 1 profile. Clark will have only 1 profile for himself. And if you want Clark to race on your boat as a crew member, the first thing that you need to do is contact Clark personally, ask him to join your crew. And only after you've spoken to that person and extended a personal invitation, then on the website, you can search for the crew member if they've got an existing profile, and through the system, send a formal invitation. That crew person must accept the invitation, and then they will be on your crew. The invitation that gets sent out is valid only for 7 days. It expires after that. We send you an email to the skipper 3 days before it's going to expire. We send it the day before it's going to expire. We send it the day that it will expire. And then if the crew member didn't log in and answer and accept or reject, then we send you one the day after saying it has expired. So as you're assembling your crew, talk to the crew member first, send the invitation through the system, and then watch your crew members to make sure that they have accepted. Because until you get the minimum crew assembled on this website, you can't submit your request for invitation. It'll just be in process. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we focus on the crew. How many have done the race? How many were Mac races or similar race? Did they do a Bayview Mac or did they do a Newport to Bermuda or something else? The important ones are races that are similar to or greater than the Mac race, or if they've done overnight passage making. And there we're talking about offshore. Being anchored in the North Channel doesn't count.
Here are some of the entry costs and logistics that you want to take a look at. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about the CMSR equipment. Don't forget that you have to get the boat home from the island. Also, obviously, there's a lot of time commitment involved, not only in getting the boat ready, but also in practicing safety drills and sailing together, as well as just doing the actual race. There's obvious cost for food and lodging maybe at the island if people don't all stay on the boat. And on the website, you can go through and calculate the entry fee and some of those associated costs. And in some cases, crew members will contribute to the budget. But in other cases, owners or persons in charge carry most or if not all of the costs involved in the race. Some of the other stuff you might think about, there are crew shirts and mat hats. If you want to know more about what you want to do on the island, you go to www.mackinacisland.org. And here are the 2 future race dates that we can, obviously the one coming up on July 17th. There's not a lot of time to complete an application. Entries are still open, but you'll need to move quickly. So if you haven't begun the process, you might want to just circle July 23rd of 2022 on your calendar. And earlier, Tom referred to the regatta manager at the CYC race to Mackinac.com is where additional questions can be sent to. And we've talked about, Googling CYC RTM and landing on the official website for the race. We wanted to leave a little bit of extra time for questions. So, Phil, if you've got questions that you'd like us to answer, we can address those now. Otherwise, perhaps we can, we're happy to go back through and do some other slides with respect to prepping the boat.
Do we have any questions here?
Yeah, PreRace Inspections outside of Chicago. Is that possible to get done, or do we have to boat, or how's that?
Okay, so the question is pre-race inspections for boats coming from outside of Chicago. How is that handled, and how do you get it done?
So there is an inspections team that's assembled. In some cases, the team will appoint or locate an individual to help do the inspection or part of the inspection in in where the boat is located. And then there are some final equipment checklists that, occur when you arrive at CYC. There is an inspection portal that you can then coordinate with the inspection team as to and make the arrangements on completing a pre-race safety inspection. Tom, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I guess I would add that in the past they've gone to selected cities: Holland, Milwaukee, perhaps one or two sites where there are a lot of entries. But in this day and age, not sure what the thing will be. So chances are you will, if you're not in the Chicago area, you will have to get your inspection just prior to the race. But every boat that is entered for the first time, whether it's first time skipper or first time for the boat, has to have a pre-race inspection. And if you go through the CMSRs very carefully, you won't have any problem with the inspection. If you come to Chicago, for the race and you get your inspection here, and you're missing some flares or something, you'll end up going to West Marine or to Crowley's. They'll sell you what you need. You can take a photograph of your receipt and send that to the chief inspector, and then your item will be cleared.
Okay, anybody online? We don't have any questions right now coming in on the Q&A feature, but if you do have a question, type it into the question and answer screen. Go ahead, Clark. I think you guys did such a good job. No one has any questions.
Either that or it's still a little early, right? But, well, I was just going to say, if people would like, we can run through, some specific equipment that you may not have that are in the CMSRs, for example, an EPIRB or storm sails. If you've raced, you have a number board, but for the Mac race, you're required to have a number board that is reflective enough to be seen from ashore.
Clark, if I can add to that, a number board is generally a fabric. Usually, it's made out of black fabric with white reflective letters, and it'll probably be 2.5 feet long and 18 inches high. I see we do have a question here from Todd Davis, multi-hull minimum crew number. For multi-hulls, the minimum crew is 3, which is a very low number. Chances are that you will need more than 3 for your multi-hull. We also do have another category of double-handed, which for monohull will let you do that race with 2. Now, when you think about it, if we want 5 people in the racing divisions on a monohull as a minimum crew, why are we doing 2 people on a double-handed? Well, if you want to enter the double-handed division with a crew of 2, you have to have a lot more experience for each of those crew members, and they each have to have safety at sea training. It's a much higher experience standard that we look at for those individuals.
And also, the double-handed boats are required to be equipped with an autopilot that can be engaged immediately.
I will say that there is still time to enter the race this year if you're considering entering. The entry deadline is June 1st, and there is a late entry deadline of June 15th. So there's time to get your entries in. And since we've got just a minute or two, I would mention that the entry fee this year is $24 a foot. If you had applied earlier and paid your entry fee by April 1st, would have been $21 a foot. And the handicap, if you're getting an ORC handicap, that certificate, if you get the club version, which I looked just this morning, I would say that 85% of the people are getting the club version of the handicap versus the international. The club version is $125. And basically that's a sister ship type of certificate where you don't have to have your boat individually measured. But you end up with the worst rating of any of the boats, any of the sister ship type boats. So if there's a small variance in between the boats, you get rated as the fastest of those boats.
Selling discharge 8 to 12.
So if there's not another question, I would like to return just a little bit to some of the safety issues. If you haven't already obtained an MMSI number, which is the Maritime Mobile Service Identification that you can obtain from either through Boat US or directly from the US government. But that MMSI number needs to be programmed into your VHF radio. And at that point, what it does is it allows the automatic identification systems to pick up your identifier, and you then appear on the screens of boats that are around you, as well as the U.S. Coast Guard is developing a means to also track your MMSI number, and it would help in the event of a rescue. But you need to obtain the number, and then you need to program it into your VHF radio.
Now, Clark,
Just one other point. Go ahead.
Okay, you should make it clear that on a VHF, that MMSI will only be broadcast when you press the emergency button on the side of the VHF.
Correct. And the other point is, if you're planning on taking your boat offshore internationally, or if you're going to go into Canada, you really need to get your MMSI number from the FCC. And that's, I think it's like a $50 licensing fee, but it's good for 10 years. But the free ones that are issued by Boat US are only good in US waters. So, and typically you cannot change the MMSI number once it's entered into your VHF radio, unless you send the radio in to the manufacturer and have them, or an authorized service center, and have them change the MMSI number. So plan ahead. If you don't have an MMSI number, if you think that you want to do the North Channel after the Mac race, going into Canada, or if you're planning on taking it elsewhere outside of the US, get the international version through the FCC.
Okay. Well, that's been very helpful. We've recorded this. We're going to post it on the Crowley's Yacht Yard YouTube channel, later in the week at some point. So if you want to review any of this, I'm sure that you'll be able to do that on the website. And also, you can send a question to the race committee if you have specific questions about it. I'm sure they will be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Regatta manager at cycracetomackinac.com.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you everybody for participating. I'm gonna end this right now.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay.
Thank you.